Good morning. Today we celebrate the Epiphany here in the Holy Land. The three Magi coming with their gifts to the Holy Family, to the baby Jesus. But you have already done that, most of you, in the English-speaking world on Sunday. So we will also comment on the readings that you have today. And basically it's the gospel reading is Jesus already in the synagogue in Nazareth, and the first reading continues with a great treatment of love. You really have to go back to the first letter of St. John and read it completely. It's just all oozing teaching that's absolutely amazing about love. I wanted to come here because Jesus teaching in the synagogues, and there were scholars up to 30 years ago who were saying there were no synagogues until after temple destruction. But in 2009 we excavated this synagogue, and now Magdala has two synagogues, because just on the 12th of December the publication was made of the second synagogue contemporary in the first century of Magdala. In fact, our synagogue stretched back maybe even into the century before Jesus, maybe even up to 50 years. It's early Roman period. Romans conquered here in 63, Pompeii, and here we have two synagogues. This is one in the teaching room, and then we have another one right over there at the foot of Mount Arbel, not even 200 yards away. You know, the Jewish people have a joke that you have to have two synagogues. There's one you go to, and then there's one you would never step your foot inside. And that's just very human reality. There are also two major streams of Judaism here. You have the Sephardi Jewish people, and you have the Ashkenazis. And the Ashkenazis are European background in coming from all the centuries of European life tradition. And then obviously they have very different cultural feelings than the ones in the Sephardic, which are the ones in the Mediterranean rim, over to the Gulf area. So the second synagogue is up there. You see where that blue is over this direction? Exactly where those white bags are. That's where our second synagogue in Magdala is. That's in state property on Mount Arbel, and it was discovered as the intersection here, which is very busy and prone to accidents, is being developed, and the second synagogue was found. So we have two synagogues in Magdala in the first century, and that's a big deal archaeologically, and it's going to cause a lot of study and academic process, debate and investigation. Those birds still keep flying there. There are thousands of them. Those are cormorants, I think. I'm far away to see, but I'm pretty sure they're the cormorants that come after the fish in the Sea of Galilee. So this academic debate is going to flourish for sure, spurred on by the discovery of the second synagogue. It means that people have to look again at how synagogues were understood and used, conceived culturally in the Jewish community in the first century. And today we have Jesus teaching in a synagogue. In fact, before it gives the account of the one in Nazareth, it says Jesus was teaching in the synagogues of Galilee. Oops, sorry. I was trying to zoom in the picture here. Nobody got hurt. And the thing flipped on me. I'm carrying this on an Osmo, not directly in my hand, and the Osmo has a little swivel. Oh, there's the sunrise. Look at that. And so the little swivel is hanging down from gravity, so it has a stabilizing effect, and you don't feel all the little irregularities of my walking and bumping along, and that makes your view more pleasant, makes the screen more constant. But sometimes it's a very sensitive thing, so if I, being not a professional, when I touch the screen the wrong way or the wrong pressure, the whole thing flips and you do a somersault in your living room, or you think I do a somersault, but it's just the gimbal. It's called a gimbal. Very good. So that's just a historical fact. You know, the thing about our faith is that it's historical, and that applies to the biblical account, really, in general. The Egyptians exist, and the Babylonians existed, and the Assyrians existed, and the Jewish people exist. And then we have this incredible story handed on from generation to generation, how God called Abraham and how he responded. And so it's historical. And Jesus was raised in Nazareth, a little child, and he became an adult in Nazareth, and he was the son of the carpenter. A very concrete history, you see. And so that's why archaeology is also important, because it uncovers the history, like of this port here in Magdala. It's a very important feature of Christianity. Christianity isn't just a theory, it's not just an ideology, it's not a philosophy, it's actually rooted in history. Now, we also have the visit of the three kings today, or the three magi, and there's a certain, let's say, development of these themes over the centuries culturally, and then it requires a bit of scholarly work to sort out between what are the cultural layers that are added, and because they become so powerful and dominant, like Santa Claus. And Santa Claus wasn't there when Jesus came around, you know. So people get confusion, are a little confused about the culture can color what we see in the scriptures. And also look at all these birds here. These are the cormorants. They're going for the little fish. And they can actually carpet the lake. And they need a lot of little fish for breakfast, because there's so many of them. So what exactly were the magi? That's an important question. And then the gifts of incense and gold and myrrh. And some people might think that that's all just symbolic, but actually there's also a context which says that there's a lot of meaning here. And if we just look at the meaning of the three gifts, we have gold, that's for the king, the most precious metal, and it was shared and traded with and appreciated. And incense is for God, worship. And myrrh has also very different meanings, but one of them associated with suffering, the suffering Messiah. So these three gifts are also statements about who Jesus is. And it turns out that there was gold in the past. Absolutely. And there was myrrh and there was incense. And regarding incense, there was an incense rout that actually ended at Gaza. and it was managed by the Nabatean people whose headquarters were Petra. And in fact, Herod the Great, his mother, Cyprus, was a Nabatean princess or high society lady. And so these are also concrete facts, concrete connections, And according to some scholarship, Herod the Great was one of the most powerful men in the Roman Empire because of the trade connections and the dominance he had here on the rim of the Mediterranean and the Eastern Rim. So no shortage of gold. Now the incense is also then for worship, and this incense trade was going from the Emirates, today's Emirates, basically that location, all the way over to Gaza. And last week or 10 days ago, we were down in the Negev and we visited some of the towns of the Nabateans. And the camels carried the incense. And we got a great explanation of that a few years ago from a guide. And there were camels walking idle, in that sense not being burdened, and other camels were carrying the weight, and then they were alternated. And there were stations, I think it was every 34 kilometers, because that's what the camels on average walked every day in that trade route. And so those stations, some of them became very beautiful towns, very wealthy towns, because of that trade. And they built very beautiful churches when they all turned Christian in the evangelization in the early centuries. So for a camel to walk from there to Jerusalem would just be a few days. And we go back to Isaiah, and the camels are bringing the gold and the incense. But then we look inside the temple, and we have the altar of incense in the temple in Jerusalem, where incense is burning before the presence of God. And actually it's on the golden altar. So you have two names for that altar. It's actually represented on the Magdala stone, according to some scholars. And the golden altar is golden, but it's for the burning of the incense. And the incense is brought to the golden altar in golden goblets or golden cups. So the gold and the incense, maybe the gold is not just for the kings, it's also for God. The most precious gifts. So it's interesting to have this cultural background as well. Sometimes we can dismiss things very easily and say, okay, that's just cultural dressing given later or whatever. And obviously people's imagination isn't shy at times and can dress up the stories very beautifully, just like film producers do today to tell the stories, just like the Chosen series, which is a marvelous presentation of the gospel. I'm sure many of you are watching The Chosen, and it really helps to bring the accounts and the people and the characters alive. It's very creative. Many of the stories are not directly in the gospel, and nevertheless the whole telling is bringing the gospel very close to us, helping us to understand the context, the relationships, the meaning, and that's very beautiful. So we can go then back to the kings, and we can see what's happening here. They're coming from different countries, different cultures, different nations, and they're these magi. There's also the great element of wisdom. The people knew the stars, especially in Mesopotamia, in the bright skies. At nighttime, the clear skies, no pollution, no light interference, and the people were able to study the stars. And these were very learned people, the Magi. And we have all this cultural richness from different peoples coming to encounter Jesus. So it's a revelation of Jesus to the nations. That's what's going on here. And if you're not celebrating in the liturgy the Magi today, then you are reading the Gospel of Jesus in Nazareth, and he's also revealing himself. Today this scripture is being fulfilled in your midst. And the people were astonished with his authority. Now he's an adult. And so the account of the Magi coming is the revelation of Jesus to the Gentiles. As even as a little baby, he's revealed. Because his whole mystery is for that, a light to the nations in the darkness. What a difference when the clouds are gone and we see the sunrise. The last 3 or 4 days, if you just flip back there on your Instagram or your Facebook or YouTube, you'll see that we couldn't get a sunrise. And today we're feasting our eyes on this incredible and beautiful sunrise. And light to the nations. Very powerful imagery. So people, since I have Mass today at 7:30 live stream, because of our special meetings and schedule, I think we'll say goodbye for now. And I encourage you to look at those readings and to let the grace of God touch your mind and heart and soul, and rejoice and celebrate and spread the word. And thank you for all the sharing and encouragement of others to be in touch here with the Holy Land, with the Sea of Galilee, with Jesus' words, with his mystery. And I'll just say my little goodbye here. God bless you. See you later, alligators.